be recorded. Jessica, I had I hit your calendar invite for next week. Did you see that?
I did. Uh-huh.
Okay. Did you know we had
Tuesday.
one yesterday?
Yes, that's why I changed it to next week.
Okay.
Because I hadn't gotten there yet, so I was like, no, we're gonna make sure we have something to talk about before we do this meeting. So yeah.
Okay, good. So how did the open house go, guys?
It went pretty good.
I think it went really well. Yeah.
Good.
Good old fashioned ribbon cutting.
Did the chamber do that?
Yep.
Good.
Well, I cut the ribbon. They held it tight for me.
Well, yeah, but they brought the ribbon and the scissors out for you, right?
They did. Yeah. And they even gave us the plaque. We've got a lot of pictures. You can see some social media stuff happening thanks to Jessica. So
yeah, good. Well, perfect. Hey, guess what? It's 8:30 and we're going to start on time. So happy Friday and happy holiday Friday. Like it's, the holiday this weekend, in case some of you didn't know that. We are off on Monday, so hope you enjoy your free time. Look forward to, I guess, the last holiday of the summer, but you can make it a holiday every day if you want to. So, okay, let's see. I am going to randomly choose. I'm going to pick on Tara again. Tara, will you read us our culture piece for us to start us off? As soon as you see that, there you go. And if you're on mute.
Okay. Our mission: build people, align with customers, innovate, give back, disrupt labor services.
Okay, good. Thank you. So this is our mission.
Oh, wait a minute. Was I up?
no, you read the right thing.
Yeah, that's the right thing.
Okay.
I would have corrected you if you read the wrong
Thank you.
thing, because I knew what I wanted you to read. So yeah, this is our mission. These 5 pieces, we should, even if it's not exactly word perfect, you should know what they are. These 5 pieces are really, really important for us as we move forward into the future, and we're working on our company. This is what we're working towards. This is the moon mission from the 60s. This is what we're striving for. So to build people, align with customers, to innovate, to give back, and disrupt labor services. Any thoughts on that? On those 5 pieces? Okay. Well, again, know what they are. It's really important that we know what they are. Kind of ties a little bit with some of the stuff we've read in these chapters. Ted, did you want to take the chapter thing, or did you want me to?
Either way, sorry. Sometimes it takes me longer than you think to get the mute off.
Why don't you go ahead if you want?
Okay. Yep. So
from this book.
So basically we had the thing that introduced the 2 non-negotiable traits for leaders, and then a little discussion on each one. Anybody have your book open or remember what the non-negotiable things they say are?
Everybody does, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Anybody?
Teams together.
Go ahead, Techie. Thank you.
Bringing multiple teams together and make great decisions.
So do you agree with that? Do you think obviously there's more to leadership, but do you think that's a important trait for leaders?
Yes.
Yep.
Why?
I could chime in and it sounds like Tara has one. She raised her hand though, so.
Okay. Tara and then Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say, as a leader, we should be able to lead by example by bringing people together and establishing and collaborating with a common goal, that everybody's on the same page, at least striving for the same goal.
Yeah, I
I
think,
was.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Ted.
No, I was just gonna say that. Great job. I agree with that.
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've had in almost every organization is silos. And silos meaning is that you have disparate teams working on different or similar things, and little communication or coordination happening. And I just have to say that's been, probably the biggest challenge of corporate anything or business anything. And so I absolutely agree with the bring teams together thing, because if we can't coordinate and communicate and work in unison towards goals, it's impossible to reach really large objectives.
I agree. Kyle?
I think of a leader as a unifier of ideas, one that listens to people, gathers information. That's one way to bring people together, is to be gathering ideas, and then making the great decisions is taking all that information that everybody's brought to the table and making the best decisions with that. I think the leader always has to be the one that's the creator of the decision. That can come from anyone.
Great, thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, so at the top of page 24 there, almost at the second paragraph, I thought this was really good. It said, because most well-intended motivational messages don't match actual daily experiences. And I think that's a huge key. You know, we all know motivation goes for about 2 weeks and then it's lost. So getting into the actual daily experiences and what do we give our teams, in those experiences. We should be working to create those good experiences, bringing teams together and making great decisions. So
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And I think you'll notice in this leadership training versus management training should have been very tactical and practical, like how to reprimand somebody, how to fill out a job description to do this, how to have a one-to-one, and also how to view your people and see their strengths. But we did all that. This is going to be more, we will get into some leadership theory, but a lot of it's going to be traits, and there's no perfect set. We're going to identify some a little bit because we're saying for our organization, these are the type of traits we're looking for, but definitely in a leader, you just obviously you need to be who you are and be true to that. But I do think this will be a little different as we kind of explore what are the traits of leaders and what are different things to have in your tool bag, and then when do you bring them out. And so it'll be a lot more theory and a lot more soft science in this phase of the thing and right now we're starting, we're not jumping straight into leadership, like, okay, what's a leader versus a manager and how do you be a leader and what are leadership traits. We're kind of starting with things that I think are important with leadership, and probably many people do. I think Carrie, for one, agrees. That's why we chose this format. But how to personally be a lifelong learner. Number two, how to think and how to be creative and how to be innovate. How to have some daily processes that really help you. So if you're like, when are we gonna get to the meat? We are gonna get to the meat, but it will be different than the last stuff we had. And we are priming it with things that we think are important about being a lifelong learner, being a thinker and creative, trying to have some daily processes that help you succeed. And then we'll get into more leadership theory, like what's the difference between leadership and management? How do you evolve to become a leader? Why do people follow leaders into power and influence, and how that works? And then a lot of stuff on leadership traits and life, I'd say life hack skills. This is kind of more of a life hack skill phase of the training. Okay, well, thanks everybody. And I'll turn it back to you, Carrie.
Great. So just to play on top of that, Ted, in chapter 4 there, I thought this one sentence was really, really good. Before your managers can deliver what they need to their employees, they must first get what they need as employees. So, and that's what, Ted just mentioned. That's what we're striving for, is to make sure that this team here and other managers, that you get what you need, so that you're capable to be able to deliver to your team. So important to be able to do that. And if you're not, it's really hard to, for example, to say to others, we need you to read more, if you're not reading. If you don't read and study and so forth, it's hard to have your people do that. So makes a big difference. So let's get in. Last week we talked about the first 3 of the 9 steps to becoming a lifelong learner. Let me pull up the other one here so I can share that with you. And let's just kind of continue into that. And then once we finish this lesson, we will move on to the next one. It could be next week. It could be 2 weeks. It just depends on how our discussion goes today. So, so as we ended last week, we talked about trying new things on a regular basis, and we had a good discussion last week around these pieces, which I think is really good. And I hope that you're looking at yourself and saying, how can I be, a lifelong learner? Am I? What am I doing to make that happen? So let's have somebody, wouldn't mind if somebody wants to volunteer, and I can't see your faces because I don't have the screen up, somebody to read this paragraph for us, number 4. Anybody love to do that?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Keep a to-learn list and set goals. It can consist of entire languages or quirky facts as long as it's yours. There's something permanent feeling about writing something down. Try it. You'll see the difference. Also, it always helps to have a plan. That's why some of us decide to learn Italian in 6 weeks or master photography in 6 months. Identifying and visualizing our goals help us become driven, effective learners. Where do you keep your list of learn to do items? Do you have any?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Do you have a list of learning stuff, and where do you keep those? I've got a list right here on my phone. I have a list of books like Atomic Habits, which I haven't read yet. It's in my my Audible, but I'm not there yet. And I also, now some of you are going to laugh, but I do like to go into Pinterest. And I don't have any friends in Pinterest. I don't connect with anybody. I go there to look at things that I like, and I save those things, and then I go back to those pages and say, okay, what am I going to do? When am I going to get this, or when am I going to learn this, or when am I going to study this? I love Pinterest and some of those formats. Again, just for me. I don't want to chat with anybody. I don't need that in that circumstance. But that's some of the places I keep ideas. I also I'm sitting here looking at least 5 notebooks, journals that I've got here right by my side that I keep ideas, and I have a small one that I pack around to jot ideas down when something comes up. So where do you keep your ideas for learning? Do you have a list of them, and where do you keep them?
I keep one next to my bed, and it's for in evenings and nights, or if I wake up with some idea, I write it down. And the reason I leave it next to my bed is because we always have these ideas and say, oh man, remind me to do this. and remind me to check this out. And do we ever remember? We usually don't. And so I write it down. Now, sometimes I'll wake up the next morning because I sleepwalk, but I wake up the next morning and I've written something down that I have no idea what the heck I was talking about. But hey, it wasn't a good idea when I thought about it, I guess.
Well, I think that's great because we do forget, and so we've got to have a place to jot this stuff down. Any other thoughts or ideas?
I would like to agree with Shane. I do the same thing. I have like a journal beside my bed on a nightstand as well. And as I come up with ideas or brainstorms, I would jot it down as well because it is very easy to forget. And sometimes it can be some pretty clever things, but the next day you can't remember exactly in sequence how you came up with it. So
Yeah, there's nothing worse. There is nothing worse when you have a great idea and then you didn't write it down and you forget. How crazy is that? That, you know, that inspiration came through and you let it go. You just let it slip through your fingers. So
I have mine on a bunch of random Word documents. And I wish I had it all in one place, but oftentimes I'll just grab a Word document really quick when I have something and I'll quickly make a little note on that. And but that's just me. I understand where to go and get my, what was I thinking for that second? Then I'll find that Word doc and get back to it and study that thing or that concept or further, that's kind of whenever I have an inspiration. It could be something with work, it could be something else. I tend to go to random Word documents. Probably good to have it all in one place though, guys.
But well, at least if you have the places that you know you keep them. So Techie?
I like using an app by Brenda Bouchard called Growth Day. There's 2 journal prompts in the morning. It helps you, prepare your mindset. And then in the evening, one of the questions I like is, what did you learn today? What you could have done better, and helps you reflect on the day and write down something you want to learn later on. And I use a few different apps for that.
Perfect. That's really good. Ted?
One thing I like in addition to those, because I do have the thing by the side of my bed and I do carry the different journals around. You have too many, it gets, but I have one I call my Big Ideas journal that's just, and there's a book I read called Big Ideas that was really good on creativity and thinking outside the box. And anyway, so you just write down anything and everything random, but it's not a normal type journal. I don't do sometimes I do gratitude journaling in it, but anyway, so love the paper ones and do that. I actually have an electronic one that can have all these formats. You can have different notebooks within that, like a Remarkable. It's like a little Kindle, but you can write on it. And then the third thing I was going to suggest is Evernote or OneNote. I use OneNote because it comes with we have it with our email, but it's really powerful. You've got all your notebooks there. So it's Kyle having all his Word documents spread all over the place. You can have a system and you have these notebooks and you can so I have a gratitude journal in there. I have an idea journal. I have just a daily journal. I have a process stuff. I have just everything, and it's all in and you can access it on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, whatever. And you get it, wherever you get it, you put it in and then it's there now for all of them. So I think the electronic notebooks like an Evernote or a OneNote, and the good thing with OneNote is we all should have it as part of our Microsoft package.
Yeah. And there's so much cool things with technology that's amazing. So those are good. Even with Remarkable, you can jot notes in Remarkable, and then it does go and put it into your computer and syncs up with that, which I like that a lot as well. So Joe.
Yep, you've also got Ivan and Jessica Judd after me, just to make sure if you can see them.
Thank you.
So, cool. Mine is real simple. Ted's way more comprehensive. Sounds like most of you guys is way more comprehensive, but anyone knows me, I love spreadsheets. And so I operate in a spreadsheet. And actually, I prefer the shareable version of Google, but I keep finances, I keep goals, I keep, ideas and other things I do like the idea of putting something next to the bed. That may not be how it comes to me, is kind of through dreams or other things, but I have one other thing that's pretty cool. Tribe House has an app where you can kind of put vision goals and associate pictures with it. That's free to use. That's pretty cool. And then they call it your ship coming in. And so as you know, what you said that you wanted, as you start reaching that, you can, put under there, your ship has come in. So it's kind of cool. What's that?
We didn't hear you after saying the Tribe House app. At least I did.
Oh,
I did.
Okay, never mind. It was just me.
It might have
okay.
been, yeah, it might have been yours.
But it's a pretty cool app, and so I can share that with you. It's free to use, and it's a really neat way to say, your ships come in. So goals that you have throughout the year, big, small, anything, and it has 5 different quadrants from spiritual to, to professional to,
Finance.
physical and other types of things, even finance. Yep. So it's cool to be able to use. It's a fun place to use, and it's it's also free. So
Awesome. Ivan.
For me, it depends on the time of day. If it's already after working hours, I use my iPhone on the notes section, and I put all my thoughts in there. And what I do is I email it to myself. So first thing in the morning, I see my thoughts again that I can share with my team members. That's one thing that's definitely helped me out, so I won't forget.
Yeah, great idea. That's really good. Again, technology is cool if we use it for the right things, right? So, Jessica.
Yeah, I use the notes app, the notebook app from Office, and the thing that I really like about it is I can integrate that with not Google Docs, with Word docs, and put links in there so that everything kind of speaks to each other. So, like Kyle was saying, I've done that as well, where you open a document and just start writing, and the beauty of the notebook is you can actually insert a link to that, and it all kind of lives in one place that way. So I think that's my go-to.
Good. So these are great ideas, and I think, hopefully you jotted down stuff if you need, your system may be just working great for you, and that's perfect. As long as you have a system, a place to put stuff. For many years, and I still have most of them, I wrote in spiral, just, notebooks and my ideas, and it was easy for me to just flip through the pages and stuff. But I do like some of the new technology that allows more organization of those thoughts and ideas. But the goal here is that we place our things of learning, what it is you want to write down. What do you want to learn? And it's great for work, but it's also great for, your personal life. What things do you want to do? What, do you want to learn a new language? Do you want to learn how to play a musical instrument or whatever? So these are great. We just want to make sure we have something. And then when you do this, what do you do next? How do you go about, like, you can write stuff down and have 5 notebooks filled with, great ideas, but what do you do with it after that? How do you go about pulling it out and moving into something? Jessica, did you still have your hand up, or?
Yeah, the moving forward piece. I think this is where it's really important that you have a strong network of people around you that you're, talking to and discussing ideas. It's another way of getting ideas as to how it is that you want to learn new things. And I find that helps keep you accountable as well, because the next time that you meet with them, they're going to say, hey, what did you think about that book? And if you haven't read it yet, then it's going to be, I haven't got to it yet. So I think surrounding yourself with people that are going to help keep you on track and accountable is one way that you can make sure that you execute on those items that you want to delve into a little further.
What about prioritizing them? Would it be good to prioritize the things you want to learn so that you can start learning them? Otherwise they just sit in a book. And I think it's important to have some priority out there so that you can start, pulling those up and start doing something about it. I talked last week about, when I wrote my books, it was, people just talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And it's just like, I don't want to just talk about it. I got to start doing some of these things. And it's so important for us to prioritize those steps and then make it happen. Kyle? Whoops, you're still on mute. There you go.
Sorry, my microphone's being funny. My moving forward stuff is usually at the peak of my curiosity is when I, if something comes to my mind, like research such and such, I will dive right into the research, right at the peak of my curiosity. And I don't like to store things for too long. If I store things too long, I might accumulate things, and I've done that before. And then I might not have my curiosity as peaked on those things when I finally get back to them. So I'm kind of weird. As soon as I have something I want to look into or whatever, my curiosity is peaked almost right then and there, and I have to kind of same day that thing or whatever. I even wake up in the middle of the night sometimes to go look into something or whatever. So I don't know. I like to get ahead of it as much as possible. But I think other people are great resources. I think books are great resources. Internet can be a great resource. And I like to use my resources.
Yeah. Yeah, Techie.
I really like the idea. You talked about people just talk about it, and what do you do with the information that you get? And I like the idea of what Jessica's mentioning is like keeping that process of accountability either to a group or someone else. One thing I came across early this year was an app called Mentorus. It's Mentorus. And basically what they did is they took all the action items from all these self-help books and they put it into almost like a habit format that you can review and keep track of something you learn from there day to day, week to week there. So I guess there's different processes that you can use through people, through apps, through reminders of making your things that you learn actionable and, being a part of yourself.
Yeah. So as we talk about this, and we're going to move on to this next one because it kind of ties in. This is if you remember, lifelong learning process. We should be, love the fact that we can get up every day and we have a chance to learn something every single day, and nobody's forcing you. You get to choose what you want to learn. Now we may learn stuff here, at work that we ask you to do, but you have choices after to learn all kinds of things and to do all kinds of things. So, to have a place to see where those are at makes a huge difference. Techie, can you read this next paragraph, please? Number 5.
Yes, ask questions when you're confused. Many of us think asking questions is a sign of weakness, but I say it's a sign of maturity. If you're confident enough in your own intelligence to speak up when you need help, you'll have no trouble becoming a lifelong learner, and you'll know more than you did if you'd been too shy. Where do you find answers?
So, Ted always mentions this, and Ted, I'm going to put you on the spot. How important is asking questions? What's your thoughts on asking questions?
I think it's potentially the single most important thing that I would say on really success. I mean, if you're stuck in life, you got to ask more questions and different questions. If you don't have the goals you want, I mean, that's my goal setting thing, is to ask questions. I start with simple things. What do I want to have? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I want to learn? And I'll fill out stuff in those categories. And then I'll ask myself other questions. What would I want people to say about me when I die? What do I want to accomplish? And I just ask questions. I went to work at IntegraCore, which is now the Maersk client we have, and I asked questions. Probably potentially could have looked dumb, I guess, but those ended up leading me taking over the company, and then I eventually bought it by asking questions. So I think questions are probably, I mean, I'm sure there's always something more important, but I'll still just kind of say they're about the single most important thing that can really set you on a path of progression and growth and just kind of get you to get the life you want. And so if you don't have the life you want, if the work is not feeling like it should, if your relationship is not where it should be, if your stuff with your kids is there, if your body is not what you want it to be, your health, your mind, your emotions, then you've got to ask different questions. So much of the, I don't want to simplify mental health down to just because it is complex with what we eat and our sleep and electrical currents and the chemicals in our body. But I've also seen firsthand with several people in my life where it's like, no, this is just the way it is. It's just the way I am. I can't do anything about it. And then finally they shifted and started asking themselves questions. And then that led to asking better questions. And then that actually led to totally transforming their life. So I think everything comes back to your questions. The quality
Yeah.
of life you have is the quality of questions you ask.
And that's how you discover. Like, you can't discover if you don't ask a question. And even in our discussions here, I think it's really good. And sometimes it's hard because maybe you're the boss, or, the manager, but people should question things, there should be a time when we can open it up for questions and ask some of the hard questions so we can be on the right track. I don't think, Ted, and if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I don't think Ted's opposed to having people question some of the things that we talk about because it opens up other discussions. It may not be the final answer, but we can certainly throw questions out there rather than being yes men, yes people all the time. It's about, what are the things that we need to do, and asking great questions really helps. Kyle?
Let me just comment on,
Yeah. Go
just
ahead,
'cause
Ted.
I would say, yes, you should question everything from your religious beliefs to your political beliefs to your social, divisive social things that you do and people that are very different. It's like, you know, let's say you're a staunch Democrat and you should think about why would a rational and sane and very bright person think this way about that? And then here, same thing, like, why is the company doing this? You should ask anything you need to about the company. The one thing I would say that really helps you get into a question mode and do it is to check your motives. And a lot of times I see people, what they want to do is they want to bring their agenda into the question. And so rather than be really curious about why someone is a Republican or a conservative or this, that, or the other thing, or why the company's doing this, we bring our motives in, or we bring too many assumptions in. And I've really had that come back in my face a few times. Even like with a client, I went to them where I was sure of all this stuff, and I kind of even led with some blasting, and then led with some questions, but the questions were really trying to just prove that I was right or that I already had these presuppositions. And so questions are awesome, and you should question everything here if you need to, if you don't understand. And that's the key, and make sure you check your motives, check the style of your thing, that you're really being curious and open, not that you're trying to prove your position right, defend your thing, reinforce your already stated belief. And I think people, I mean, you see it you see it everywhere. People most of the time don't do that. I think that they're trying to just reinforce their position. So,
Yeah.
and so I think check your motives, and then you should be able to ask any question anywhere. And I think we really encourage questions. Sorry, Kyle.
Thank you. That's perfect.
No,
Kyle?
no problem. I was just thinking, if we never asked questions, where would we be as a society? I think we'd be stuck. We may not have even become hunters and gatherers, you know. So I just think without questions only means we accept the status quo and we're absolutely stuck. Asking questions gets us to the next place and moves things forward. So I think that curiosity we need to have and is what is going to get us to the next place. Otherwise, it's just status quo, and we're stuck without questions.
Yeah, exactly. Shane?
That falls right in line with sales, right? With our needs audits, we have to ask good questions to be able to uncover what the company needs to be able to show our differentiation for that customer. It's the exact same thing in negotiations. And my team right now, we're still doing this masterclass course with the art of negotiation, and with Chris Boston. It's awesome because he gets in there and his first thing he talks about is in negotiation is it doesn't have to be one-sided. You don't have to go into a negotiation to be like, I'm going to win and I'm not going to stop until I do win. It can be a win-win across the board, but you have to first understand what that customer is looking for or that person you're negotiating with needs until you can whittle really down what's going to create a win-win across the board for everybody.
Good. Very good. Thank you. Tara?
It could create a win-win, Shane.
Sorry, say that again, bud.
No, I was just mirroring it. It could create a win-win.
A win-win across the win-wins.
That's awesome.
Tara?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to lean into it just a bit and probably asking for some feedback coupled with a statement. I ask a lot of questions, but I'm cautious who I ask my questions to. I gravitate more towards the people that are doing what they say they're going to do. You know, you have some people that's good in theory, they can talk about it, but I'm more attracted to those that's being about it. And I guess I'm selective. I ask plenty of questions. I love to do discovery and I learn a lot in that way, but I'm cautious who I ask those questions to. So I guess I'm bringing that in to ask that you guys lean into that. And what are your thoughts about that? Are you a person that would ask questions to that individuals that's being about what they're talking about, or someone that's more a quoter and they know every line? You follow me?
Yeah. So I think that part of the number 5 there is, ask questions when you're confused and where do you find those answers? And I think that's a good point, Tara, is, we should have, I think this comes into play when we talk about mentors, right? People who I'm not talking about your coach or your manager, which is the same. I'm talking about mentors, people that have done some of the things you're trying to do. And so I think it's good to ask questions to those types of individuals. But I think it's good sometimes to ask questions to others just to get a differing point of view so you can judge better on the ones that you trust a little bit more, but you can see this other side. You know what I'm saying? So that's my point of view. Any other thoughts on that, Becky?
Yeah, I think what it does for you, it's the key facts and questions to get to truth and gaining more information, understanding, more details and more perspective. And it also takes a lot of courage to ask those questions, especially if it's against the status quo. And then also you have to have a high sense of humility to ask questions as well, to tell yourself, I don't know these things, but I'm going to seek the answer from other people and something that, and notice that you're lacking information or details yourself and to go outside of yourself. So.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Tara's statement or question there? So Tara, I think you're on that right track. I think it's important to have those mentors, which you've identified, which is what you're talking about. And then again, throw questions out there too to see what other things come back. But doesn't mean you're going to trust those situations, but at least you see some other sides to help, make decisions. I think you have to be careful too, because this statement says, where do you go for answers? A lot of this generation coming up, where do we go for answers? Where do we go?
Google.
The unfiltered internet, which can have all kinds of wrong misinformation and polar, just things that aren't. So yeah, you got to check your sources.
Yeah,
the internet
you really
is never
do.
Wrong. The internet's not wrong. It tells me. It says it's not wrong.
You do have to be so careful because I mean, how many times have you stepped into that where you're like, oh my gosh, I believed Google. So you do have to check your sources. I think it's a great place to go to start and pull things up, but then you need to go in and check those sources because there's so many wrong answers that can get. So find people that are your mentors that you can trust, and lean towards that as opposed to just using the internet, which can really sideline you. So, Maria?
I don't know how many times I've like Googled something for work and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting, but it doesn't sound right. So I like text Kyle or I call him and I'm like, hey, so I have this question. I Googled it. Google doesn't sound right. And then it's like, I knew it wasn't right because Kyle gave me the right answer. So
Yeah.
I've done that so many times. I do it all the time.
Yeah. So that's great. So again, you can throw it out there and kind of get some information, then go to your mentor or somebody you trust and ask those questions and see what you can find out, see how it compares. So again, it's doing exactly what I said. Have your mentors, but also you can use these other sources, but be careful. But it does give you thoughts about differing things to see, and then you have to check and see if they're right. So I just think that's really important for you when we talk about where do we go for answers. Do you need to know as you're learning, who do you trust? Who can you go to? Um, when my dad was alive, I trusted everything. He's not always right. He wasn't perfect by any means, but he was such a knowledgeable um, person and so laid back and so uh, unassuming to, he just was a kind of person that people gravitated to. And he always had ideas and always gave you wise counsel to go take a look at. He's not here anymore, but I have to ask my questions sometimes. What would my dad say about this? Would he say this or that? And that's a really important thing for me because I know kind of his pattern that he would do. So, Jessica?
Yeah, just we're talking about leadership. So on the flip side to all of this, I think in being a leader, it's really important that we create an environment and a rapport with those that work with us and for us, that they feel that they're able to come to us to ask those questions without any judgment or it reflecting on their intelligence. I've worked with people where asking questions wasn't a great thing, and it was a reflection of your knowledge base, which is ridiculous. But I think in being leaders, we need to make sure that we're nurturing and encouraging people to ask those questions. Um, and on the flip side of that, I think there's a certain level of humility that is needed as well, where we are willing to question what we're doing, why we're doing it, and acknowledge there may be a better way of doing it or just a different way of doing it. So I think they're the two pieces in leadership where we can be on the other end of this and make sure that we're nurturing an environment where people feel like they can ask the questions and approach you with some challenges if needed.
Right, right. I think that's good. And that's where you can get into mastermind groups and things like that, that you can find people that can really help you. And you have to choose wisely in there too, but I think it's really good. But find those mentors. I think that's great. So I want to move to the next one. And this next one kind of reminds me of Scott a little bit. So Scott, can I have you read number 6 here?
I'm just trying to. There we go. Put it into practice. Skill-based learning is useless if it isn't applied. Studying painting isn't the same as picking up a bush or picking up a brush. And it's also the same too. If it's not the same as picking up a bush either. That's weeding. Anyway, if your knowledge can be applied, put it into practice and create something. What is something you have put into practice?
So Scott, I thought of you when I read that, because I thought, Scott's like, no BS. Just if you're going to learn, pick up the brush and start painting it. What the heck are you doing? So I think
I'm glad that's what
it's
reminds you of me, Carrie.
well, it's take action, right? If you're going to do something, take action.
Yeah. This whole time I was thinking of a saying I always say is, don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah, be about it. And so it's really, really valuable, you guys, to, like, if you keep saying you're going to do something and you don't do it, like, what good is that? Read all the books about it. What good is it? you know, when I'm going to go back to this writing a book because it's just it's a good example. I bought a number of books on how to write a book, and you know, I've taken a few classes on how to write a book. I found one that was called Write It Fast. It was how to write a book in 30 days. My first book I wrote in 30 days. It was the month of December back in 2005, I believe, or 2005. And but again, it was, you know, that process of I've read it. Now get onto the computer and start typing in stuff so that we actually are doing something and moving forward. So again, if we look at this question, what is something that you have put into practice? What's something that you've put into practice that you've studied or worked on recently?
Jessica has a hand up.
Jessica?
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. There you go.
I accidentally had my hand up. Sorry.
Okay.
I can't think
So
of anything off the top of my head, so
Have,
I'll let
have
someone else
have
take that
any
one.
of you, have any of you read something, learned something, desired to learn something? Ashley Labrum.
It's not quite in the exact same category, but when I first decided that I was going to start running races, I started by learning like what's the proper technique, where do you start, how do you prevent injuries, and I found myself in this cycle of like, well, I just need to know how to make sure that I'm breathing correctly, and I would find ways to kind of put it off until I jumped into it. I think I was a little afraid of it, and as soon as I jumped into it, it was glorious, and all those things were pretty natural anyways. But that's one thing that I kept putting off, you know. And once I jumped into it and just did it, it was great.
Yeah. Techie.
Yeah, the book I've been reading recently, the last month and a half or so, was the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. And one principle I've been really trying to implement day to day is, it's in the title. It's not to define yourself by your past or past experience or past, it's to really believe in your future self and to unmemorize bad habits, negative thoughts and whatnot, and to turn that around and create a new future, new positive thoughts. So overall, it's just working on my mindset to believe in this, this limitless potential that we all have. So
Great. Yeah. Good example. Any others? So nobody.
I just want to say that when we start doing, that's where we find the power in it. If it's just ideas unpracticed, we may be held back by our fears or whatnot. And it's the doing that really gets us going, and you'll discover the fear of those things goes away as soon as you start doing it. And I think probably all of us have, had some kind of fears of executing something, and then maybe that stopped us at times, but that the magic is just getting started too. And of course, you have to study really well. I wouldn't grab a scalpel and start doing brain surgery without very good study first. So that side of it certainly, I mean, you probably should be afraid if you haven't studied enough on certain things. But yeah, I think the power is getting started and doing it, and you find that it's not as scary as your mind made it to be.
Yeah, I think they're just, Scott, I see your hand, so I'll come back. I think that's really important. When I have a couple of Jeeps, and off-roading to me meant driving on a gravel road, somewhere up in the mountains. But I wanted to do a little more of the aggressive climbing, and I had another guy, and I'll tell you, my vehicle, not the one you see, well, both of them, I guess, they can go places that are amazing, but it wasn't the vehicle, it was me. I didn't know enough to feel comfortable, and I had a guy that had the same Jeep as me, my other one, and he called me and said, I want to learn more about my Jeep. Will you help me? And he said, yeah. So he took me out, and we went on some talk about fear. My first hill was almost like straight up, and he says, now this looks really scary, but just go up it like you would a steep driveway. And I went right up, and I thought, oh, that wasn't so bad, but it was scary when I first started. So I put it into action. I could have just drove my Jeep around on dirt roads, but we went out and did some crawling and got more aggressive, and it was exciting. It was fun, but I had a good teacher as well. So getting out there, like Kyle said, and not having that fear, taking the first step into the darkness, sometimes has to happen in order for you to achieve that. So Scott?
I think right now it's as we talk, it's perceived as rainbows and butterflies, and oh yeah, you just got to do it. And I think that might break your fear of doing things, but I think you also just need to be prepared that it's going to get messy. There's going to be problems. There's going to be different challenges you come across, especially at least in my experience, when trying to find something to break the habit or to improve maybe how you're doing things. It does get really tough, and because it changes the dynamic somewhere. And so especially when you're talking about like process improvement or self improvement or anything like that, it's just it is worth it. That's not, I'm not saying it's not worth it, but what I am saying is that mentally prepare yourself for hurdles and challenges, because there will be some of those along the way, because change is hard. And so, I mean, it is as simple as just getting it started, but understand that you must persevere, otherwise, or you must have the mindset that, yeah, I will persevere through this. Otherwise, it's, you'll just default back to what you were doing before.
And that's a good point. And the reward, though, is great most of the time. I'm not saying that it's perfect all the time, but the reward, what you've learned in the journey by taking those challenges on, they can be really, really hard. But, when you look back over time, I think you'll realize just how good that you were to take that on and to succeed through and persevere through it. If you did, and if you didn't, you learned a lesson. You learned a lesson. So, did somebody else have their hand up that I didn't see?
Oh,
I
Tara.
did. Yeah,
Tara?
I did, but I lowered my hand. I was just going to chime in on what you were saying about your Jeep. I'm into car racing, and I love car racing. But it wasn't until I actually got into a car, drag racing on a track, and they got over 100, got up to like 130, that my heart starts, beating, and I'm trembling. And I'm like, yeah, but I do love it, but I was nervous. So I understand what you were saying. I was just kind of piggybacking off of the Jeep scenario. Is very much in alignment with car racing, but I absolutely love it. Yeah.
So does Scott. He likes the car race, so he'll probably challenge you now that you've been out on the track. So we should all get together and go out to Miller Sports Park and get in
There
the
we go.
go-karts and race each other in the go-karts. So that's really good. I think this is good information. Again, looking at the question back on number 6, which was, what's something you put into practice? So I appreciate your thoughts and ideas. I appreciate you taking a look at that. We're running out of time here. So the next one is, and we won't necessarily get through it all. We'll probably end here in a few minutes, but choose a career that encourages learning. Pick a career that encourages continual learning. If you are in a job that doesn't have much intellectual freedom, consider switching to one that does. Don't spend 40 hours a week in a job that doesn't challenge you. So the question is does smart resources challenge you and help you to learn? And if so, how? Okay, so here we have the owner of the company on the call. And so he's already said, we can be honest. Does smart challenge you? Are you learning anything here in the company? Are you being challenged to learn and grow and develop. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like I'm challenged daily. We look at processes that we can update and upgrade and just things that we do. And then obviously for the last 3 days of just extreme cold calling, you're challenged to one, stay positive when you deal with security guards that are not as pleasant as they should be, but as to how we can provide a better service and get clients to utilize our services.
So, Shane, in that same line, because it hasn't been too long since you started with us, have you been going through any training at all since you started?
Training. I'm not sure I'm following you on. Absolutely. Yes, it has been nonstop and it's been good. And we provided trainings as well. And so, yeah, we're learning every day.
I mean, you and I spent some time, we had you go through base camp. We've had you go through my training. We had you go through traditions, which most of you should have gone through. So, and then we've just spent 6 months, you guys, 25 weeks going through management training. We do other types of training. I mean, I hope, and maybe you can look back and say, no, Smart didn't give me any training. I've heard that statement, many times from other companies. I left because they never trained me. I just can't believe that people can leave here as we provide training for people in the in the extent that we do. Now, can we expand it? Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
Sometimes we could miss the mark and we could have all this fancy leadership and self-development and hero path training and stuff, and we could fail to give people the proper tools and training on their job. Like, I don't exactly know what I need to succeed. And so I think we need to have a really great, in addition to all this training, we need to have a really strong orientation process, onboarding process, and integration process with continual on-the-job training and cross-training. And I think we could potentially lose sight of that, where we're busy doing leadership training. Before we do ever any leadership training, we better make sure that we've trained everybody on what's expected of them. That's one of the Q12 things. I know what is expected of me at work. I have the tools and resources to do it. I know how to use them. That's another one, and so I suspect we could do a better job. I think we do a great job of this big thing training. I suspect we could do a better job of the basic training and making sure everybody knows exactly what to do, where to do it, how to do it. And that we constantly refresh that. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, but that we're doing job training of how to do your job and how to do new stuff within your job, and making sure everybody's following the process and having the team members train each other, so that reinforces the learning, and then cross-training into other jobs. And so I don't know how good or not good we are. I just suspect that's an area of opportunity.
No, and I think that's good. In the sales side of things, which I can speak to, there's a rotation which we've learned from Griffin Hill, and each week the salespeople are going through training and accountability and all of that kind of stuff, which I think's so important. We learn the language and the proper use of what we're trying to do in the sales side. I think it would be great if that same sort of thing, and I don't know, I'm not saying that we don't do it, but I don't know if we do it or not. But are we doing it on the recruiting side? Are we doing it on the finance side? Are we doing it on the HR side? What are those things that we're doing on a weekly basis like we do in sales? And we might say, gosh, that's every week, every single week we go through. Yes, every week we do it because it's that important. And you'll notice that just a minute ago, Shane said the words needs audit, which like me, when I first came on board, it was, no, that's a discovery. Yes, but in our company, it's a needs audit, right? So that language and that development makes a huge difference in how we work as a company together. So I think it's good. I think we probably should look at it. We do offer a lot. Can we offer more? Can we offer better? Shane, were you going to say something? Okay. Is there a way we can make sure that this gets down to the end of the row to every single person? What are the things we're missing? How do we look at that, and how do we take it to the next level? Which I think is really, really important. And part of that is, as we learn, is management. It's the manager, which is the name of the book. It's the manager, it's the coach. And it's kind of your responsibility to find those things out, what your people need and want, and how to make that happen. And all of us become a resource to help each one of those managers and leaders make that happen. So, all right, we've got 2 more pieces that will continue next week. And I just wanted to hang on just a second. Because Ted, I think you sent an email.
Yeah, I just sent out the reading assignment, which is just 49 different little, it's a couple minute read is all, but just we'll do to prime us for creativity, the stuff from the Creativity Inc. book.
Okay, perfect. So here's what I want, and we'll finish with this. I just want you to take a second. Please take where, you named all these places that you write notes. Please take a second and jot down at least one item that you learned from today. What was one thing that jumped out to you? And again, it doesn't have to be exactly the stuff that we learned, but maybe something that, revealed itself through this process. What did you learn today? And to follow the process that we learned today as well, what action item will you be taking to go out and make that thing happen? One thing you learned today, and what action item will you be doing this next week and beyond to make that happen? And if some of you want to learn to play the Native American flute, we can get online and I'll show you how to do some basic. Anybody feel passionate about the one thing they learned this week that jumped out at you that you want to kind of start working on, practicing, doing, getting out and making it happen? I think Tara's going to go do some racing. That may be good. Ivan?
Asking more questions, maybe challenging our leadership some more.
Okay. Asking question. Guys, I got to tell you something real quick. I've traveled all over the country training salespeople. The biggest weakness that the salespeople always had was they didn't know how to ask questions. It was their biggest weakness. And I couldn't figure out, because the whole process is questioning. And they did not know how to ask questions, not even good questions, but great questions are what we want. And they did not know how to ask questions. So that's good, Ivan, asking questions. Anybody else before we jump off? Yes, Maria.
First, I want to say that Scott looks like really cool with his black background and his black hat and shirt, like really looks mystical.
Yeah,
Going
really.
for
He's a
mom boss
mystery.
status.
But the one thing that stood out to me this week is journaling. I don't do enough of it. I just kind of think, oh, I should get this done, but I don't put it on paper and I take no action to get it done. So maybe that's something I'll take away from our training today.
Good. Yeah, and we'll go into some of that in our some of our lessons when we talk about transformational habits as well. So thank you. That's good. Okay, Ashley Hosang.
Yes. So something that stood out for me this week was more like a reminder and to confirm that I am in a company that goes aligned with something I always think about. So my number one hobby right now, besides of course interior decoration and aesthetics and all these healthy foods and learning more of this, is being able to study myself, to study my behavior, to know what I need to change, and what I need to improve. So having the opportunity to come every day and work to the same company, of something that, for example, on my weekends, that is something I do. I have, of course, my therapist, and we go through on things that I must improve. And knowing that every time I have a meeting or a huddle or this management training, it all aligns well. So it's just a way for me to be very grateful, because of the role I'm in and in the company I'm in.
Yeah,
I feel
studying
like if I'm if I'm working in calm.
yeah.
in
Well,
that-
studying yourself, yeah, your behaviors and understanding how to work on those behaviors, kind of what Techie was talking about earlier. And I think that's fantastic. So working on those, I love it, you guys. I appreciate everybody chiming in and giving your points of view and all of that good stuff. We love the fact that we can learn together, learn from each other, and I appreciate everybody doing this. So next week we'll finish off those two, and then we'll start into the to lesson number 2, creative thinking. So anyway, you guys, it's again holiday weekend. So have a fantastic holiday and be safe out there. We want all of you to return next week with all of your fingers and toes and all that good stuff. So have a great weekend. We'll talk with you all real soon. Thanks for being here and take care, everybody. See you later.
Bye. Happy Friday.
Yep, you
Bye.
too.